As I continue to do this women entrepreneurs series, I want to highlight female entrepreneurs that took the risks, that built companies, and that have gone through their ups and downs. And one of the things that I look at is like the actual mission of the company and the founder. So today I'm really excited to have Priya Shah. Priya, welcome.
Thanks, Penny. Good to see you.
Great to see you. So, first of all, I just want you to give, before we talk about the simple good, I'd love for you to give a little bit of a background of who Priya is, some of the things that you mentioned to me last time when we talked, about how you grew up and all that kind of stuff. So, yeah, if you can just tell us your background, that'd be good.
Yeah, for sure. So I am the founder and executive director of a nonprofit organization called The Simple Good, which is based in Chicago. Our mission is to connect the meaning of good from around the world to empower youth to become positive activists through art and discussion. So my journey was that it started with me actually growing up as being an artist. I grew up right outside of Chicago and had a lot of really unique opportunities to do some volunteer work around the world at a very young age. I worked at Mother Teresa's orphanage for a bit. I was in slums in South Africa and Brazil and a lot of different parts of the world where I really learned what it means to teach and learn resilience. And that is what really profoundly changed my life, how I saw myself, and also made me reflect on how we are really instilling that here back home and how it's actually not being taught at all. And how I actually learned that was when I was at the orphanage. I was working with kids that had gone through so much within a very short period of time on this earth, and noticed that they really had this really strong skill set of identifying beauty in other people and around them and having the skill set to acknowledge it. And so, really being able to call out those small good things that are in our lives and being able to acknowledge it and express it is really what fuels resilience. And that's what kept them going. And that example made me realize that I'm not doing that for myself. And it allowed me to really reflect on the things that I had to overcome growing up, and really identify how I was going to overcome those obstacles using the simple good in my life. Like a lot of the time, growing up, I was born the only person that really looked like me in my community. Being a woman in this world is always going to be an impressive experience, unfortunately. And I'm also born with one hand. So I had so many different levels of oppression that I was facing at a young age. And no one ever really taught me what was the good about me. And I felt like that was what was missing, at home for a lot of our kids that are stigmatized and, looked at as negative, is that we're always taught what we're not and not really instilling what we
What do
are.
you What do you mean by that when you say we're always taught what we're not?
We're really in the habit of putting kids in a box, right? Humans in a box of expectations that are not necessarily truly them, right? So I am an artist and that's how I influence and impact the world. But growing up, people told me that's not a real thing and you can't really survive on that. And, I am doing art right now and I am surviving and I am making an impact through it. And that's because I truly felt out and fulfilled that possibility and understanding how I can do that. And by having these different doubters of what I'm not, it creates kind of obstacles that humans create that limit us to even explore ourselves. So many of us are like navigating this world, not really knowing who we are and how we can really maximize our fulfillment and our potential in this world. And I always say it's a responsibility for us to really explore these inherent assets and truths that we're born with and carry that out into the world, because you're given them for a purpose. You're not giving them just for that to sit there. You're giving them for a purpose, for it to impact the world. And we don't really foster and flourish that in education, in our families. There's always the kind of expectations through the media that make you be someone else and not truly you.
No, that's I mean, perfectly said. So for me, especially like we're both Indian, right? And we grew up in a culture where it's STEM stuff are the things that are valued, like science, technology, engineering, and medicine. And like you mentioned being an artist, but almost a lot of things outside of that are almost looked down on because there is no career to it. Whereas now I feel like as people like me and you and people in our generation are getting, our people our age are having kids, I feel like that stigma may be a little bit, not as tight, because people have actually seen the exposure to Western civilization and seen people who take their passion and turn it into something and make a living out of it. The other thing that you mentioned that I really think is cool is something I'm very passionate about, which is self-awareness. I think self-awareness is the most underrated tool that most people live their whole lives without not knowing their purpose, or really understanding their skills, their strengths, because they're so focused on doing things that society thinks is good, or what their parents or their significant others think is good. And I made a promise to myself about 5 years ago that I will never do that. That I'll never let anything or anyone else control my purpose. And it's a weird feeling, because when I do things that's aligned with that purpose, for me, there's a feeling that I get that says, okay, you're aligned with the universe. I know that sounds like way out there, but just saying.
No, it's a real thing. I mean, there are, alignments with who we are, where we're born, who we're surrounded with, and it's really up to us to fulfill that alignment with us, to really connect, ourselves in the pathway that we should be, and you don't really truly understand it until you start walking that path. A lot of people kind of are like, okay, whatever. It's because they haven't really been vulnerable enough to put their placement in that path that really lines them up to who they are, and surrounding them with people that align with who they want to be, and that's a intuitive skill set that forces you to talk and understand yourself, right, rather than these external factors that, I don't know, again, are telling you what you're not. So yeah, I mean, I understand that 1,000%, and you have to understand that to be a founder, right, and to start things in general.
So tell me about the Simple Good, and as a founder, like, what made you start it? What exactly is the Simple Good, and like what the mission is?
Yeah, so I started it because of those experiences internationally that really impacted my life and made me see the gap between what we're teaching here back at home, where we think we have everything, and what truly matters for us to live a fulfilling life that's supportive for all of us, right? And I actually ended up studying business. I'm an accounting and finance major after I saw the gap between business and the social sector. So a lot of people don't know that because they're like, oh, you're an artist, but I'm actually a business person. I worked at Ernst Young, and I started the organization while I was there, and then moved on to Groupon, and still doing it part time. And as I was transitioning, the organization was growing, and it really just started with one program that we did with a group of kids on the South Side. Really challenging them to find their meaning of the simple good, and exploring that through the arts and this photography blog that I started that went viral, and inspiring them to find good in their lives through these inspirational photos and stories from all over the world, and creating an image that represented that. And at the end of the program, they were presented it publicly at a final showcase, and they talked about their meaning of the simple good and how they'll use it to change the world. And that program was very powerful because it allowed us to see the impact of surrounding kids with a notion of positivity for a short period of time, and how it allows them to change how they see the world, and therefore how they will decide to live in it, right? So the decisions that you're making, the ways that you interact with folks that are around you, and the philosophies that you want to dictate your life. And what we also learned was that this program was also allowing our students to go through the process of healing and cope. At a young age, when you have a lot of negative things happening to you, you don't always understand why things are happening, or what that means, or the impact on you, unless you truly allow it to express and have it outside of your body, right? That is actually a part of the trauma recovery process, and it happens to all of us. A lot of us don't actually express the things that we might be feeling, and therefore it sits inside of us and it weighs us down and limits our potential to move forward. And I definitely felt that growing up, and I always used art as a means to let my thoughts be expressed and kind of funnel that towards a forward moving position. And not everybody is even given that freedom, right? And so these kids were able to enable not only art but also positivity and a supportive community to express that, and it became a very powerful program that the principal asked to have come back every year. And so from that, the program really organically grew. A lot of different schools asked for it. We're working with different nonprofits. We ended up formalizing our curriculum to be based on social emotional learning standards, that basically is now required for all schools. So for those that don't know what social emotional learning is, it's really teaching self-awareness and decision making in order to have positive decision making and relationship skills to have a successful life. All
How
of
do
us should
schools
be.
do that? Because I always thought that one of the things that I feel like schools should do is be able to teach emotional intelligence, especially at a young age, because um, I mean, I look back when I was a kid and I'm like, oh my God, I never want to sound like, like it's one of those things where it's like, I remember how, from a kid to like college, and there was a lot that happened, right? But we don't learn that. Like we learn how to do algebra or basic math or learn about social studies or whatever they call it now. But we don't know how to balance our own emotions. So like how, if you're saying schools are starting to do that now, how are they doing it?
So every school, it's not that they're all effectively doing it, unfortunately, and that's why organizations like ours come in and help support that. But every school is required to have X number of hours of SEL teaching within the school day. In the school week. And unfortunately, teachers are not necessarily trained on this or equipped to incorporate it on top of everything else that they have to do, right? This is a new requirement. So what we do is come in and use the arts as a tool to develop it, really using it for dialogue, bringing kids together, practicing empathy, understanding meditation and self-awareness through that practice, and incorporating all that within the curriculum so we can make space for that. And I always say, understanding yourself is so critical for learning, right? If you understand who you are, then you'll really receive information because now you're able to make it meaningful to you, right? You know what you're good at, you know what you're passionate about. So when you're learning math, okay, this might be helpful because I'm eventually going to do it towards something that I like, right? Rather than arbitrarily learning things that is not applied to who you are as a person. So I think that this is kind of a beginning time where this is kind of being implemented in schools and nonprofits across Chicago and education in general. And it's a thing that needs to continue to be amplified, but not only in schools, also at workplaces, right? Like we
Right.
really need to be able to understand how to work with each other. And I've always said that, and that type of training needs to happen as adults as well.
Yeah, I think I was going to bring up the work part, but I think if you started at schools though, like at that age when our brains are developing, then it's setting us up to do better as human beings, right? So yeah, and on top of that, I mean, right now there is more of a demand, especially because we're in isolation. There's a more of a demand right now for therapists than ever before, and therapy is finally becoming more accepted in society, I guess. But yeah, no, I think that's great. So in terms of like the simple good itself and what your plans are for the next however many years, like what are some of the goals that you have and what do you want to do with it?
Well, like you said, right now, we're in a global pandemic and the mental health impact on our kids is really profound, right? And this is something we're gonna see for many decades. So it's just really feeling like a sense of huge urgency to get our program into the hands of as many kids as possible in Chicago, expanding our partnerships and our footprint here so that we can really support the mental health of our youth and provide the tools that they need to really think positively this time. Because the reason why this is so critical is because just in a few years, these will be our next leaders, right? And so we have to make sure that they are in a space of going through this coping and healing process so that they can be set up to start running, the world in a very sane and peaceful way, right? So our goal is to expand, here in Chicago and support our youth, but then also be scaling across the country. Right before COVID, we were just about to do that, and the world has paused and allowed us to reset,
Yeah.
which is totally fine. We've learned a lot during this time, and also, people have realized the importance of our work even more. So, unfortunately, had to take a pandemic, but now everybody really is impacted by what we do and have always done. So we've been able to extend our services to adults, do corporate trainings, and really support as much as we can in any means that we can. So the goal for the next 3 to 5 years is now starting to bring this outside of Chicago to support more communities that are not just local.
Okay, and then if there are companies that want to partner with you or people that want to know more about how to support you and the simple good, what's the best way to connect with you?
Yeah, just email me, Priya at thesimplegood.com. Sorry, I don't even know my email, Priya at thesimplegood.com. Or you can just go to our website, thesimplegood.org, and contact us from there. But we're always looking for new partners that align with our mission and our values to really expand our impact. And we're really excited for the amazing partnerships that we've had during this time. And we're excited to just keep building on that.
I think it's great what you're doing. Love it. And I think that, it's something that's well needed right now, especially, but even long term. So I'm going to tag you on this video on LinkedIn. And so like if people want to, they could reach out to you directly. And hopefully, this can help. Hopefully, because of this, you might be able to get some help with having some partnerships. So I asked this question to everyone, so I'm gonna ask you this too. Um, if What advice do you have for women or younger girls that want to start their own business?
That's a great question.
I know.
Um, I would say, with anything, I guess everything that's the theme of my life is be resilient. Everyone is going to tell you that you should not be wasting your time and be devoting your energy towards other goals that women are expected to do. But if it is true to you, that's what you need to aim for, and that's what's going to make you the powerful woman that you should be, right? So I always say, everything else that is a goal in your life, you'll pursue in its own time. And as you pursue your own company, that should also be an extension of who you are, and be just as dedicated to that as you would to anything else that you want to invest in. So it takes a lot of heart and it takes a lot of longevity. But it's worth it, right? You just need to be your truest self, despite what society will tell you to be.
Well said. Cool. Well, thanks again for doing this. And I'm looking forward to getting to know you more, obviously, but also seeing how I can help with the simple good. So I love your mission and what you're doing.
Thank you, Benny. Appreciate your support.
All right.